The Lover by Marguerite Duras. Page 64. Marie Claude Carpenter. She was American, from Boston, I seem to remember. Very pale eyes, gray-blue, 1943. Marie Claude Carpenter was fair, scarcely faded, quite good-looking, I think. With a brief smile that froze very quickly, disappeared in a flash, with a voice that suddenly comes back to me, low, slightly grating in the high tones. She was 45, old already, old age itself. She lived in the 16th arrondissement, near the Place de l'Âme. Her apartment was the huge top floor of a block overlooking the Seine. People went to dinner there in the winter, or to lunch in the summer. The meals were ordered from the best caterers in Paris, always passable, almost, but only just enough, skimpy. She was never seen anywhere else but at home, never out. Sometimes there was an expert on memoir there, and often 1, 2, or 3 literary people. They'd come once and never be seen again. I never found out where she got them from, where she met them, or why she invited them. I never heard anyone else refer to any of them, and I never read or heard of their work. The meals didn't last very long. We talked a lot about the war. It was the time of Stalingrad, the end of the winter of 42. Marie Claude Carpenter used to listen a lot, ask a lot of questions, but didn't say much. Often used to express surprise at how little she knew of what went on. Then she'd laugh. Straight away after the meal, she'd apologize for having to leave so soon. But she had things to do, she said. She never said what. When there was enough of us, we'd stay on for an hour or two after she'd left. She used to say, "Stay as long as you like." No one spoke about her when she wasn't there. I don't think anyone could have, because no one knew her. You always went home with the feeling of having experienced a sort of empty nightmare, of having spent a few hours as the guest of strangers, with other guests who were strangers too, of having lived through a space of time without any consequences and without any cause, human or other. It was like having crossed a third frontier, having been on a train, having waited in doctors' waiting rooms, hotels, airports. In summer, we had lunch on a big terrace, looking over the river, and coffee was served in the garden, covering the whole roof. There was a swimming pool, but no one went in. We just sat and looked at Paris. The empty avenues, the river, the streets. In the empty streets, catalpas and flower. Marie Claude Carpenter. I looked at her a lot, practically all the time. It embarrassed her, but I couldn't help it. I looked at her to try to find out who she was. Marie Claude Carpenter. Why she was there rather than somewhere else. Why she was from so far away, too, from Boston. Why she was rich. Why no one knew anything about her. Not anything. No one. Why these seemingly compulsory parties. And why? Why? In her eyes, deep down, in the depths of sight, that particle of death. Marie Claude Carpenter. Why did all her dresses have something indefinable in common that made them look as if they didn't quite belong to her? As if they might just as well have been on some other body. Dresses that were neutral, plain, very light in color, white, like summer in the middle of winter. Betty Fernandez. My memory of men is never lit up and illuminated like my memory of women. Betty Fernandez. She was a foreigner too. As soon as I say the name, there she is, walking along a Paris street. She's short-sighted, can't see much, screws up her eyes to recognize you, then greets you with a light handshake. Hello, how are you? Dead a long time ago now. 30 years, perhaps. I can remember her grace. It's too late now for me to forget. Nothing mars its perfection still. Nothing ever will. Nor the circumstances, nor the time, nor the cold, or the hunger, or the defeat of Germany, nor the coming to light of the crime. She goes along the street, still, above the history of such things, however terrible. Here, too, the eyes are pale. The pink dress is old. The black, wide-brimmed hat, dusty, in the sunlight of the street. She's slim, tall, drawn in India ink, an engraving. People stop and look in amazement at the elegance of this foreigner who walks along unseeing, like a queen. People never know at first where she's from, and then they think she could only be from somewhere else, from there. Because of this, she's beautiful. She's dressed in old European clothes, scraps of brocade, out-of-date old suits, old curtains, oddments, old models, moth-eaten old fox furs, old otter skins. That's her kind of beauty. Tattered, chilly, plaintive, and in exile. Nothing suits her. Everything's too big, and yet it looks marvelous. Her clothes are loose. She's too thin. Nothing fits. Yet it looks marvelous. She's made in such a way, face and body, that anything that touches her shares immediately and infallibly in her beauty. She entertained Betty Fernandez. She had an at-home. We went sometimes. Once, Drew La Rochelle was there, clearly suffering from pride. He scarcely deigned to speak, and when he did, it was as if his voice was dubbed, his words translated, stiff. Maybe Brassellac was there too, but I don't remember, unfortunately. Sartre never came. There were poets from Montparnasse, but I don't remember any names, not one. There were no Germans. We didn't talk politics. We talked about literature. Ramon Fernandez used to talk about Balzac. We could have listened to him forever and a day. He spoke with a knowledge that's almost completely forgotten, and of which almost nothing completely verifiable can survive. He offered opinions rather than information. He spoke about Balzac as he might have done about himself, as if he himself had once tried to be Balzac. He had a sublime courtesy, even in knowledge, a way at once profound and clear of handling knowledge without ever making it seem an obligation or burden. He was sincere. It was always a joy to meet him in the street or in a cafe, and it was a pleasure to him to greet you. "Hello, how are you?" he'd say, in the English style, without a comma, laughing. And while he laughed, his jest became the war itself, together with all the unavoidable suffering it caused. Both resistance and collaboration. Hunger and cold. Martyrdom and infamy. She, Betty Fernandez, spoke only of people, those she'd seen in the street or those she knew, about how they were, the things still left for sale in the shops, extra rations of milk or fish, good ways of dealing with shortages, with cold and constant hunger. She was always concerned with the practical details of life. She didn't go beyond that. Always a good friend, very loyal and affectionate. Collaborators, the Fernandezes were, and I, 2 years after the war, I was a member of the French Communist Party. The parallel is complete and absolute. The two things are the same pity, the same call for help, the same lack of judgment, the same superstition, if you like, that consists in believing in a political solution to the personal problem. She, too, Betty Fernandez, looked out at the empty streets of the German occupation, looked at Paris, at the squares of calopes in flower, like the other woman, Marie-Claude Carpenter, who was at home certain days, like her. He drives her back to the boarding school in the black limousine, stops just short of the entrance so that no one sees him. It's at night. She gets out, runs off, doesn't turn to look at him. As soon as she's inside the door, she sees the lights are still on in the big playground. As soon as she turns out of the corridor, she sees her, waiting for her, worried already, erect, unsmiling. She asks, "Where have you been?" She says, "I just didn't come back here to sleep." She doesn't say why, and Aline Lagonelle doesn't ask. She takes the pink hat off and undoes her braids for the night. "You didn't go to class either." No, she didn't. Helene says they've phoned. That's how she knows. She's to go and see the vice principal. There are lots of girls in the shadowy playground. They're all in white. There are big lamps in the trees. The lights are still on in some of the classrooms. Some of the pupils are working late. Others stay in the classrooms to chat, or play cards, or sing. There's no fixed time for them to go to bed. It's so hot during the day they're allowed to do more or less as they like, in the evening. Or rather, as the young teachers on duty like. We're the only two white girls in this state boarding school. There are lots of half-castes, most of them abandoned by their fathers, soldiers or sailors or minor officials in the customs, post, or public works department. Most of them were brought up by the assistance board. There are a few quadroons, too. Aline Lagonelle believes the French government raises them to be nurses in hospitals, or to go in orphanages, leper colonies, and mental homes. She also thinks they're sent to isolation hospitals, to look after people with cholera or the plague. That's what Hélène Lagonelle thinks, and she cries because she doesn't want any of those jobs. She's always talking about running away. I go to see the teacher on duty, a young half-caste herself, who spends a lot of time looking at Hélène and me. She says, "You didn't go to class, and you didn't sleep here last night. We're going to have to inform your mother." I say, I couldn't help it. But from now on, I'll try to come back and sleep here every night. There's no need to tell my mother. The young woman looks at me and smiles. I'll do it again. My mother will be informed. She'll come and see the head of the boarding school and ask her to let me do as I like in the evenings. Not to check the time I come in, not to force me to go out with the other girls on Sunday excursions. She says she's a child who's always been free. Otherwise, she'd run away. Even I, her own mother, can't do anything about it. If I want to keep her, I have to let her be free. The head agrees because I'm white, and the place needs a few whites among all the half-castes, for the sake of its reputation. My mother also said I was working hard in high school, even though I had my freedom, and that what had happened with her sons was so awful, such a disaster, that her daughter's education was the only hope left to her. The head let me live in the boarding school as if it were a hotel. Soon, I'll have a diamond on my engagement finger. Then the teachers will stop making remarks. People will guess I'm not engaged, but the diamond's very valuable. No one will doubt that it's genuine, and no one will say anything anymore, because of the value of the diamond that's been given to this very young girl. I come back to Hélène Lagonelle. She's lying on a bench crying because she thinks I'm going to leave. I sit on the bench. I'm worn out by the beauty of Hélène Lagonelle's body lying against mine. Her body is sublime, naked under the dress, within arm's reach. Her breasts are such as I've never seen. I've never touched them. She's immodest, Hélène Laganelle. She doesn't realize she walks around the dormitories without any clothes on. The most beautiful of all the things given by God is this body of Hélène Laganelle's, peerless. The balance between her figure and the way her body bears the breasts outside itself, as if they were separate. Nothing could be more extraordinary than the outer roundness of these breasts proffered to the hands, this outwardness held out toward them. Even the body of my younger brother, like that of a little coolie, is as nothing beside this splendor. The shapes of men's bodies are miserly, internalized. Nor do they get spoiled like those of such girls as Hélène Laganelle, which never last, a summer or so perhaps. That's all. She comes from the high plateaus of Dalat. Her father works for the post office. She came quite recently, right in the middle of the school year. She's frightened. She comes up and she sits beside you and stays there without speaking, crying sometimes. She has the pink and brown complexion of the mountains. You can always recognize it here, where all the other children are pale green with anemia and the torrid heat. Hélène Laganelle doesn't go to high school. She's not capable of it. Hélène L. She can't learn, can't remember things. She goes to the primary classes at the boarding school, but it's no use. She weeps up against me, and I stroke her hair, her hands, tell her I'm going to stay here with her. She doesn't know she's very beautiful. Hélène Laganelle. Her parents don't know what to do with her. They want to marry her off as soon as possible. She could have all the fiancés she likes, Hélène Laganelle, but she doesn't like. She doesn't want to get married. She wants to go back to her mother. She, Hélène L. Hélène Laganelle. In the end, she'll do what her mother wants. She's much more beautiful than I am. The girl in the clown's hat and lame shoes, infinitely more marriageable. She can be married off, set up in matrimony. You can frighten her, explain it to her, what frightens her, and what she doesn't understand. Tell her to stay where she is. Wait. Hélène Laganelle is 17. 17. Yet, she still doesn't know what I know. It's as if I guessed she never will. Hélène Laganelle's body is heavy, innocent still. Her skin's as soft as that of certain fruits. You almost can't grasp her. She's almost illusory. It's too much. She makes you want to kill her. She conjures up a marvelous dream of putting her to death with your own hands. Those flower-white shapes. She bears them unknowingly and offers them for hands to knead, for lips to eat without holding them back, without any knowledge of them, without any knowledge of their fabulous power. I'd like to eat Hélène Laganelle's breasts, as he eats mine, in the room in the Chinese town, where I go every night to increase my knowledge of God. I'd like to devour and be devoured by those flower-white breasts of hers. I am worn out with desire for Hélène Laganelle. I am worn out with desire. I want to take Hélène Laganelle with me to where every evening my eyes shot. I have imparted to me the pleasure that makes you cry out. I'd like to give Hélène Laganelle to the man who does that to me, so that he may do it, in turn, to her. I want it to happen in my presence. I want her to do it as I wish. I want her to give herself where I give myself. It's via Hélène Laganelle's body, through it, that the ultimate pleasure would pass from him to me. A pleasure unto death. I see her as being of one flesh with the man from Cholon, but in a shining, solar, innocent present, in a continual self-flowering which springs out of each action, each tear, each of her faults, each of her ignorances. Hélène Laganelle is the maid of the bondsman who gives me such abstract, such harsh pleasure. The obscure man from Cholon, from China, Hélène Laganelle, is from China. I haven't forgotten Hélène Laganelle. I haven't forgotten the bondsman. When I went away, when I left him, I didn't go near another man for 2 years, but that mysterious fidelity must have been to myself. I'm still part of the family. It's there I live, to the exclusion of everywhere else. It's in its aridity, its terrible harshness, its malignance, that I'm most deeply sure of myself. At the heart of my essential certainty, the certainty that later on I'll be a writer. That's the place where later on, once the present is left behind, I must stay, to the exclusion of everywhere else. The hours I spend in the apartment show it in a new light. It's a place that's intolerable, bordering on death, a place of violence, pain, despair, dishonor. And so is Cholon, on the other bank of the river, as soon as you've crossed the other side. I don't know what became of Hélène Laganelle. I don't even know if she's dead. It was she who left the boarding school first, a long while before I went to France. She went back to Dalat. Her mother sent for her, I believe to arrange a match for her. I believe she was to meet someone just out from France. But I may be wrong. I may be projecting what I thought would happen to Hélène Laganelle unto her prompt departure at her mother's request.